Wolf and Alicia Fitzgerald. Again, guys, thank you so much for being with us and giving up your time. All right, let's have a look at these two stories, I think. Well, let's do them together. I think it makes sense, doesn't it, on the Daily Telegraph and The Guardian, about the NHS and the use of foreign doctors and nurses.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two stories on the front pages. And obviously the NHS is never out of the headlines, is it? And particularly during the winter months, particularly during the kind of super flu season, we know that staffing are under real pressure. We've had the threat and the actuality of strikes as well. The Telegraph are reporting that we are so reliant on foreign doctors that about 42% of our NHS workforce are foreign trained, so that's nurses and doctors, and that compares to I think 15% in Germany and around 11% in France. So we are significantly higher. Almost half of our workforce are reliant on foreign doctors, and the Telegraph are just sort of unpacking the risks involved in that, the lack of opportunity in some ways, the lack of training, the lack of funding for British trained doctors, for our own doctors that are actually trained here, the fact that they can't get onto specialty training courses. And in the recent strikes, resident doctors, some of the BMA were talking about the fact that, they want more opportunities for homegrown doctors, as it were. And then in the Guardian, you can talk about the racism.
Got the sort of the other side of it, haven't they? That doctors here are apparently being put off by the racism and xenophobia that they face.
Well, absolutely, and that is definitely a huge issue if we are so reliant on overseas NHS workers, if they feel like they aren't welcome in the UK and suddenly feel like, somewhere that's been their home, often for a very long time, it's no longer somewhere that's really safe for them. This is interesting because obviously a lot of the talk about immigration is about illegal immigration, but of course that does kind of trickle across to all forms of migration, even if the government try and make a distinction between the two. And what's being said here is that people are hearing about attacks on synagogues, anti-Muslim protests, and of course, whilst the crux of those, the purpose of those is to voice public opinions about illegal migration. Of course, if you're a Muslim or you come from a country that people seem to be really focusing on with their illegal migration population, of course you're going to feel something. Of course you might take that personally and feel like you also are welcome. And I think the government really, and not just the Labour government, just successive governments in general, have really struggled to kind of make that distinction between people that they want in the country and people that they don't. And of course that is going to have a knock-on effect to wider society. And the NHS, of course, being something that's so vital and basically carried us through the pandemic.
So, and as Emma says, we're going through the winter season now. The NHS is under great pressure, so maximum respect to everyone who is working in the NHS at this particular period, including my own little sister. All right, let's move on to the front of the Daily Mirror. Yeah, we're going to do this one. This is the interview with the General Secretary of TUC, Paul Novak. We've heard from him earlier. He was speaking to our own John Craig, and he's got a message for Labour.
He has. He's got a message for Labour. The fight that they have to win, really, the thing that they have to address is the cost of living. It is the number one, in every poll, it's the number one priority, the number one concern for people in this country is the cost of food prices soaring, energy bills, heating their homes, transport, filling the car with petrol. All of that is people's issue. It really is their concern, and they're absolutely struggling. Wages are not going up. They are absolutely not keeping pace with these soaring prices. And, many people feel that the government does not have a handle on this. Paul Novak, as you say, from the TUC, talking about this issue and how this is the key thing that Starmer has to get a handle on somehow.
And the Mirror have some polling that's been done by the TUC in 38 degrees, and it's really stark. I mean, 1 in 5 adults are skipping meals every day or most days. Extraordinary. 1 in 3 cutting back on heating daily or most days, and 79% said that their financial circumstances were stagnant or getting worse. I mean, this idea that, the quality of people's lives would improve as we go through perhaps being put to pay by some of those statistics, and not just statistics, but how people are genuinely feeling out there.
Yeah, of course, and this is the thing, it's every single element of people's lives. It's not just fun things, it's not luxuries, it is absolutely everything. It's housing, it's food, it's energy bills, and then, of course, it is nice things as well, and that massively feeds into the way society feels. If people can't afford to do something fun every now and again, and this is, people who are working, people who've
that affects the economy as well. When you can't buy the treats or the holidays or whatever.
Exactly, but if people can't even afford the basics and the essentials. How on earth can you justify being able to do something nice at the weekend? It's impossible. And I think a big issue here is wage growth. We have had pretty much stagnant wages for years now. I mean, you look at like the early 2000s, the cost of living was so tiny compared to now, yet wages have barely grown. And I think the successive governments aren't really talking about this. You know, we hear a lot about migration, and of course, you know, that's a tiny factor of a way larger issue, which is just that people can't afford to live.
Yep.
And I think that's also reflected, to go back to the NHS for a minute, it's reflected in the kind of waning support. You know, people always supported the doctors and nurses when they went out on strike. Now that we've seen public opinion shifting, and that's because, you know, people say, well, my wages haven't grown, let alone 29%, 26%, whatever figure you want to take. And of course, the doctors have a point about keeping up with, you know, keeping up with where they should be. But people just feel it's not fair. My wages are not going up at all.
It was actually one of the arguments made by Wes Streeting when asking the doctors not to strike, that he has to look after the entirety of the NHS, everyone who works in, nurses, porters, everyone else. It's not just doctors who want extra money. Obviously, that argument didn't work because the doctors went on strike. Anyway, move on to the front of the Times. Headline: Royal trips to woo Trump. So this is the members of the monarchy, top ones as well, going to the States.
Yeah, it looks like King Charles and Queen Camilla will be heading to the States to on a charm offensive, apparently, to woo President Trump, probably around April time, it seems likely. This will be the first visit by a reigning monarch in almost 20 years. The last one was Queen Elizabeth II, who went to visit George W. Bush in 2007. Prince William is going to follow soon after. He'll be there for the World Cup. But this is, you know, a kind of, I think this is a further effort to ameliorate the special relationship. We had the very, very lavish state visit back in September, in which all sorts of promises were made and pledges were made and transatlantic agreements were allegedly kind of forged in that kind of wonderful outpouring of mutual appreciation between Trump and the royal family and all of that. And actually, many of those deals have either been watered down or have sort of fallen apart. So I'm not sure this is going to well, maybe it will reignite them, maybe it will reheat them a little bit. But yeah, this is Charles and Camilla off to the States.
Yeah, a lot of promise.
Another pilgrimage for them.
Yeah, it is indeed. It's a lot of promise from that state visit, the second state visit, which was historic. Now, this, and I missed this earlier, but this is to coincide with the 250th anniversary of American independence, which is an important moment. So a king going to America on the 250th anniversary after they rejected the king is something. And it's, you know, it's another chance as well for Donald Trump to see himself in the same strata as monarchy.
I was going to say, I mean, I think it's definitely under the guise of celebrating American independence, but I'm sure that's not really what's going to be going on and not really what either parties are hoping will happen during these talks. I think it's definitely the UK wanted to kind of cozy up a little bit more to Trump, try and secure some kind of deals which have, as you say, so far kind of crumbled and failed. I think Trump will probably make loads more big promises, you know, say that he loves the UK, he loves Keir Starmer, he loves the monarchy, all of these grand gestures. But I think when it gets down to it, I wait to see whether they materialise in the long term.
Well, let's see.
And I think it's interesting that Starmer is not expected to go with the king, because he was quite pivotal. Do you remember him delivering the letter, the invitation, reading it out? This was from the king, all of that in the Oval Office. It doesn't look like Starmer will be alongside him.
He won't be on that visit, but I do think he'll be at the World Cup, obviously.
Oh, yeah, of course he will.
Yeah,
that's a bit of football.
Let's move on. No, we're going to go... I just heard someone say something in my ear, Lippy. No, we're going to move on to hackers now, and then we'll get to Lippy next, if that's all right. Voices in my head. Hackers. This is in the Mirror. Take us through this.
Yeah, so obviously growing threat of cyber attacks generally, whether that's on a national level or on a personal level. But what this story is saying, it's an exclusive in the Mirror, is that hackers this Christmas are actually tackling people's smart devices now. So that could be a Ring doorbell, that could be a smartwatch, you know, any of those kind of fitness watches or devices. All of these smaller things can actually be bigger gateways into your personal data. Also, especially cameras. I mean, that literally allows someone to spy on you, where you live, etc., etc. So all sorts of dangers there. And they don't really give much advice advice on what you're actually meant to be doing, apart from not using these devices whatsoever.
I was going to say the hackers are getting in as soon as they're opened, I guess. But I don't know, what are you going to do?
Honestly,
not have the gift?
Well,
this is why I think that Ring doorbells, I think smartphones, I think even the rings that you can wear, the watches, all of that, we are putting ourselves we're making ourselves so vulnerable. If someone can literally have your personal data, all of it, obviously your bank details and everything, but even the camera could be pointed either way in any of your homes once they get absolutely appalling.
Yeah. All right, we are going to move on to lipstick now because the Daily Mail have some reporting here how it cuts the risk of depression. I love this.
Well, this sounds frivolous, but it is actually a psychological study. It's called the lipstick effect. This isn't just us being frivolous after Christmas. This is the idea that actually, this is a study that shows that wearing a little bit of makeup can actually reduce depression. I won't ask you, because clearly you don't wear lipstick.
I don't wear lipstick.
On TV.
Well, on TV, in your public life.
No.
But I think, and we were talking about it with some of the women, some of the production team. There is something, it sounds frivolous, it sounds superficial. There is something, and it's probably just about making a bit of an effort.
Yes.
You know, in the same way that a bloke feels probably better when you've, I don't know, had a shave or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think there is something...
Or properly dressed, you put your watch on.
You put your work clothes on, not the PJs at home kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's something about, whether it's a slather of lipstick or a little bit of eye makeup or something, just to pull yourself together and make yourself put on your game face, as it were.
Okay.
And it actually has an effect on people's mental health. And I think that's really, really
Which is
important.
brilliant. Yeah, it is.
Because I feel like the conversation for a while has been about getting ready for work, etc. Obviously, post-COVID, working from home, it's been, you know, is it really professional? Is it good for you to kind of sit in your trackies on your laptop? And I think this kind of is a development of that.
Yeah.
That actually it can even go beyond maybe just putting some slightly nicer clothes on. There are all sorts of things you can do to make yourself feel a bit more proud of yourself, a bit, you know, more confident. And I do think there's definitely some method to this madness, for sure. I do think it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything that makes a person feel better within themselves is obviously better for everyone involved.
Exactly.
Indeed.
Right, we're going to move on to this one on the Bayeux Tapestry. You'll remember, viewers, that it is coming here next year, which is very exciting, as Britain sends the Sutton Hoo treasures to a museum in Normandy as part of this cultural swap. But there may be some costs involved in
yeah, well, there's going to be quite a lot of security costs, the transport costs. It's arriving on a great big truck. So it's coming to the British Museum next year, 2026, and it's going to be an absolute showstopper. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Some of us remember learning about the Bayeux Tapestry at school, you know.
Absolutely.
It was absolutely, you know, it is an absolute classic. So it will be here. France are loaning it to us. But the costs involved are looking pretty steep, and obviously the British taxpayer is going to be picking up those costs. There was also a rumour that I've heard that the French are expecting us to do a bit of housework, that we may have to someone will have to sew up. There are hundreds and hundreds, thousands of holes in the tapestry. There are stains, obviously, because it's hundreds of years old. So there may be a bit of other costs involved.
So you get a nice borrow, but you've got to do a little bit of renovation.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Shouldn't they have sent it, been patched up already?
In good quality.
In good nick?
I mean, imagine being the seamstress that's tasked with fixing that. I mean, no pressure.
And
it's the biggest job of your life.
Temperature controlled and light controlled. You can't just, you know, get out a needle and thread.
It's extraordinary. As you say, it's going to be a showstopper because, of course, you're not going to be charged against the British Museum, I don't think, to see this thing. Or is this going to be a special gallery?
I think this exhibition is going to be free, but I
Okay.
I haven't heard that confirmed.
No, but I mean, British taxpayer forking out to apparently fix it all. Apparently, I mean, look, we don't know how much fixing it's actually going to need. It might be absolutely fine. And to be honest, I don't think anyone expects an artefact of this age to be in perfect condition.
No. It's very fragile. It's it can fall apart if you don't.
Is it that bad?
Transport it. Yeah.
And the voices in my head tell me made in Britain, fixed in Britain, so I suppose there's some
pride
from some people
Lovely.
to have it. All right, 70 metres long, it's 1,000 years old. And
1,000 years old, that's what I'm saying.
That's incredible, right?
You can't mess around with that.
Yeah, and quick final thought about Gen Z and the fact that they like drinking. They drink driving is more acceptable than for Gen Z than older motorists. What do you think of this? Real quick thought.
What I think is I don't think that many Gen Zs can afford to drive. Yeah. I mean, most people I know are just kind of getting, hiring a car or jumping around on e-bikes, line bikes, scooters, all of that.
Alicia, thank you so much for that. See you all again very soon.
Thank you.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?